Physics can tell you exactly what a brain is made of. It cannot tell you why there is something it is like to be one. That gap has a name. Philosophers call it the hard problem, and it has been sitting in the middle of neuroscience for 30 years without moving. One proposed solution does not try to close the gap. It turns the entire picture inside out and says, we have had the relationship between mind and matter backwards from the start. It is not a new problem, and it is not a fringe one. It is the wall every theory of everything eventually hits. We are going to look at what that position claims, the strongest argument for it, and the strongest argument against it. And here is the part worth staying for. The most serious objection to this idea does not come from physicists. It comes from inside the position itself. Start with something ordinary. You bite into a strawberry. A neuroscientist can follow that event in complete detail. Sugar molecules bind to receptors on your tongue. Signals travel the chorda tympani nerve into the brainstem, up through the thalamus, into the gustatory cortex. Every step is measurable. Every step obeys known physics. Nothing is missing from the account, except the taste. Nothing in that chain explains why any of it should feel like anything. You could build a machine that runs every one of those steps, detects the sugar, routes the signal, says that is sweet. Nowhere are you forced to conclude the machine tastes anything. The lights could be off inside and the behavior would be identical. David Chalmers gave this its modern name in 1995 in a paper called Facing Up to the Problem of Consciousness. He drew a line between two kinds of questions. The easy problems are attention, memory, discrimination, and reporting. Hard in practice, but we know what an answer would look like. Find the mechanism, and you are done. The hard problems are different in kind. Why is there experience at all? Why is there a felt quality to being you? Notice that you can describe every mechanism completely, and the question is still standing there, untouched. Thomas Nagel put it in one sentence in 1974. What is it like to be a bat? You can map its neurons all day. You still cannot get from the map to the experience. I want to be careful here, because this is where the whole video rests. The hard problem is not a complaint that neuroscience is young. It is a claim about the shape of the explanation. Physics describes the world in terms of structure and function. What things do, how they relate. Experience is neither. It is the fact that any of it is felt from the inside, and it is not obvious that more of the first kind of description ever adds up to the second. Now, the mainstream position has an answer, and it deserves to be heard properly before anyone throws stones at it. Physicalism says matter is fundamental. Arrange it the right way, and consciousness appears. Not as magic, but the way wetness appears when you have enough water molecules. No single molecule is wet. Wetness is what an arrangement does. Consciousness, on this view, is what an arrangement of neurons does, and the evidence is real. Damage the fusiform gyrus, and you stop recognizing faces. Anesthesia switches experience off on a dose curve you can predict. Change the chemistry. Change the mind, every time. That correlation is one of the best supported findings in science, and no honest account gets to wave it away. Physicalists also point out that I cannot imagine how that would work is a fact about the imaginer, not about the world. In 1850, nobody could imagine how chemistry produced life. That gap closed. Maybe this one closes too. That is a serious position, held by serious people, and it is still the majority view. When the Phil Papers survey polled nearly 2,000 professional philosophers in 2020, about 52% accepted or leaned toward physicalism about the mind. But hold that number for a second. 52%. Roughly 32% leaned the other way, and the rest were undecided or thought the question was badly posed. This is a live disagreement among credentialed people. It is not a settled matter with a fringe attached to it. Here is the move. Analytic idealism. Its most systematic living defender is Bernardo Kastrup, who worked as an engineer at CERN and Phillips Research. The position starts from an observation that is hard to argue with. The only thing any of us has ever had direct access to is experience. Every measurement, every instrument reading, every equation arrives in your awareness first. Matter is an inference from experience. Experience is not an inference from anything. So physicalism on this view has the explanatory arrow pointed the wrong way. It starts with the abstraction and then tries to derive the one thing we know. Idealism reverses it. Consciousness is fundamental. There is one field of experience, and what we call matter is what mental process looks like from the outside. The way a hurricane on a satellite image and a hurricane you are standing in are the same event viewed from two positions, which raises the obvious objection, and it is the right objection. If there is only one mind, why are there billions of us? Why can I not read your thoughts? Kastrup's answer is the part that makes this a scientific proposal rather than a poem. He points to dissociation, a documented psychiatric phenomenon in which one mind produces multiple mutually inaccessible centers of experience. Dissociative identity disorder is the extreme case, and the neuroscience is stranger than most people realize. There is a German patient in the literature known as BT, diagnosed as cortically blind for 15 years. In therapy, she manifested 10 distinct identities. Some could see, some could not, and the switch could happen in seconds. That is not self-report. They measured visual evoked potential. In the blind states, the signal was absent. In the sighted states, it was normal and stable. Same eyes, same optic nerve, same visual cortex, different identity, different signals. Published by Waldvogel, Ulrich, and Strasburger in 2007 and followed up in 2015. And across many studies and imaging methods, control groups of actors trained to simulate the condition have not reproduced the brain patterns people with the diagnosis show between their own states. So, the argument goes like this. We have empirical evidence that a single mind can partition itself into centers that cannot access one another. Scale that up, and you have an account of why one field of consciousness would appear, from within, as billions of separate subjects, looking out at a world that seems external to all of them. Your body on this view is not what produces your consciousness. It is what your dissociation looks like from the outside. The image of a process, not the cause of it. An idea being coherent is not the same as an idea being useful. So here are 3 specific problems where the idealist account claims to do real work. 1. It dissolves the hard problem instead of solving it. Physicalism has to explain how something with no experience gives rise to experience. Idealism never incurs debt. Experience is the starting point, so there is no moment where it appears out of nothing. The question changes from how does matter produce mind to how does one mind appear as many. That second question has a known natural analog. The first does not. 2. It handles the combination problem that panpsychism cannot. Panpsychism is idealism's nearest neighbor. The view that consciousness is a basic feature of matter. Elegant idea. Brutal problem. How do a trillion tiny subjects merge into the single unified subject reading this sentence? Nobody has a good answer. Idealism inverts the arithmetic. It starts with one mind and divides rather than building one out of many. Subtraction, not addition. Kastrup, Adam Crabtree, and the University of Virginia's Edward Kelly laid out exactly this argument in Scientific American in June of 2018. 3. It makes physics' own history less awkward. This is not new territory. Arthur Eddington wrote in 1928 that the stuff of the world is mind stuff. Erwin Schrödinger spent his later years arguing for a single unified consciousness, borrowing openly from the Vedanta. These were not mystics moonlighting. They were people who had looked closely at what physics actually delivers and noticed something. Physics gives you relationships: mass, charge, spin, position. Everyone is defined by how a thing behaves toward other things. Ask what any of it is intrinsically, and physics is silent. It was never built to answer that. Idealism proposes a candidate for the intrinsic nature physics leaves blank. Which brings us to the objection I promised, and I want to deliver it honestly, because a video that stacks the deck is not worth your time. The strongest objection does not come from physicists, it comes from inside the position, and Kastrup concedes it himself. The dissociation model is an analogy backed by empirical evidence for the existence of dissociation. It is not yet a mechanism for it. Nobody in psychiatry or in metaphysics can currently give a formal, explicit account of how dissociation happens. Kastrup has publicly named developing that formal account as unfinished work. Look at what that means. Physicalism is criticized for having no mechanism by which matter produces experience. Idealism, at its very foundation, has no mechanism by which one mind produces many. Both positions have an unexplained hinge at exactly the point where the explanation matters most. Now, the idealist has a fair reply. At least dissociation is something we observe happening. We have never observed unfelt matter producing a felt experience. An analogy grounded in a documented phenomenon beats a promissory note. That is a real asymmetry, and the strongest thing the position has going for it. But it is a reply. It is not a resolution. And there is a second objection worth naming. If reality is mental, why is the world so stubbornly consistent? Why can I not think a bridge into existence? Why does the same experiment give the same result in Tokyo and in Toronto? The idealist answer is that the world outside your dissociation is not your mind. It is the rest of the field, and it has regularities you do not author. Coherent. Whether it is satisfying is a judgment you are entitled to make for yourself. I do not know which of these is right. Anyone who tells you they know is selling something. Here is what I would take from it. For most of the last century, one answer was treated as obviously correct, and the alternative as something you would grow out of. That is not where the argument actually is. It is a live disagreement, conducted by people with real credentials. And if you have read the older traditions, the Hermetic material, the Vedanta, the mystics who kept insisting that mind is the ground and the world is its appearance, you will notice something. They were making an ontological claim, not a devotional one. They were arguing about the same thing, in different languages, long before the instruments existed. That is worth sitting with, not as proof of anything, as a reason to take the question seriously. Because if consciousness really is the ground, rather than the byproduct, then what you do with your own attention is not a private matter happening inside a skull. It is the fabric doing something. That is a large claim, and I will not oversell it. But it is why a lot of us keep coming back to this question and cannot quite put it down. You have probably been turning it over for years without finding anyone who took it seriously. Consider it taken seriously. There is a physics side to this same question, and it is where the argument gets genuinely uncomfortable. It is called the measurement problem, and that video is on screen now. If you want the full case, the links are in the description. The great work is here, the great work is now, and the great work is you.